No living white person has owned a slave. Black people gotta stop blaming people for their issues and clean up their own communities. Slavery was a long time ago. Black people need to get over it. That's what continuously is told to me. Now, before I respond, I'm going to need you guys to share this video. I'm not going to curse. I'm not going to spread false information. Everything that I'm about to say is 100% true. You can look it up to see. And I'm not going to say anything that makes people cringe, at least language-wise. All right. Let's not dwell on the past. Let's go to modern history. Let's go 1964. 1964, right? That's 56 years ago. We all know somebody 56 years old, whether it's us, our parents, grandparents. So you would call that modern history, right? That was when the Civil Rights Act was passed, which made it illegal to discriminate against black people. So understand that if you know anybody over the age of 56, they lived in a time where legally you could discriminate against black people, okay? But now that the Civil Rights Act was passed, we all know that once the government signs a bill or a law, everybody abides by it, correct? So that would explain why Martin Luther King Jr., who you love to bring up so much, Martin Luther King Jr. kept protesting and kept marching, and he himself ended up being killed in 1968. That's 52 years ago. Do y'all know somebody 52 years old? Probably. So, a lot of people bring up Martin Luther King. Y'all should be more like Martin Luther King. He would be ashamed. He would not like the things that y'all are doing. When Martin Luther King died, he had a negative approval rating. As a matter of fact, polls taken at the time said that more than 1/3 of people polled said that he brought his death upon himself. All this stuff you can look up. Moving forward, 1971, 49 years ago. You know, you guys in your 40s, this is you guys. Richard Nixon, the president, declared a war on drugs, which you can look up and research that his war on drugs basically just targeted hippies and black people. All right, you know, black people for like heroin and opioids, like the opioid crisis that we're currently in, that they're sending everybody to rehab and not putting anybody in prison. Yeah, empathy and things of that nature. Yeah, it wasn't the case for black people in the 70s. Threw all of them in jail. And even if they wasn't really doing it, throw them in jail too. Then hippies, people who were about peace, love, understanding, all lives matter. They were unfairly treated and arrested for using marijuana. Marijuana. Marijuana is the drug that while we're in a pandemic and 40 million Americans have lost their job, marijuana dispensaries are considered essential. That's right. Been open the whole time. The people who were smoking that and saying all lives matter, yeah, they were targeted. They were targeted too. And Richard Nixon's run ran until 1974. That doesn't mean these practices ended. That means that he officially left office in 1974. That was 46 years ago. We all know someone who's 46, but that's the 70s. Let's not dwell on the 70s. Let's move to the 80s. Let's say something like 1987. Know anybody born in 1987? If you don't, you're looking at one. 33 years old. 1987. The CIA flooded black communities with crack cocaine to pay for a war in Nicaragua. You can look this up. They've made documentaries about it. There's even a movie called Kill the Messenger that was made about it, starring Hawkeye. That's how soon it is. One of the Avengers played in the movie. All you have to do is look up the CIA and Contra. You'll find everything you need to know. You'll know that Hawkeye played a guy named Webb. What happened to Webb? Why can't you just look him up? Because he's dead. Unfortunately, he committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head 2 times. All right, so so now we have crack flooded through the black communities all through the late 80s into the 90s. And black people are like, please help us. This is tearing apart our community. So then comes the crime bill. Did this crime bill stop bringing drugs into the community? No, it did not stop the flood of illegal weapons or guns into the community. It just put everybody in the community in prison. Did it offer drug rehabilitation for the whole community? No, it did not. It left the crackheads to raise the children. This is 1994. This is the 90s. Y'all remember the 90s? Sure, because I'm pretty sure by now, if you're watching this video, you were probably alive in the 90s. And after this bill incarcerated more black people than ever before in the history of the U.S., businesses decided to get in business with prisons because you could get free labor. And I know some of y'all might go, you can't get free labor. That's slavery. Well, according to the 13th Amendment, that abolished slavery, slavery became illegal except, guess where? Prisons, which are disproportionately filled with what? Black people. Now prisons are big business, making over $100 million a year. So in order to keep this business up, prisons have a quota for how many people must be in it every year. Yes, you heard me right. There is a quota for how many people they have to have in the beds in prisons. How do you do that? By putting more people in prisons. Maybe for crimes they didn't commit. Maybe giving them longer sentences to keep people in beds so you can meet this quota, which black people have been complaining about. And you can do the research on to find that this is true. Mass incarceration is modern day slavery. Also, when you get out and you want to change your life, you can't, because people don't treat felons the same way, no matter what your felony is, and you're not allowed to vote. And since pretty much 1 in every 3 black men have been or will go to prison, we lose 33% of our voting power. And all of this is prevalent today. 2020. You remember 2020? Of course you remember 2020. Because if you're watching this video, that means you lived in 2020. Now, with all this information I've given you, I haven't brought up police brutality. I haven't brought up racism from civilians. I haven't brought up racist practices by the banks. And I'm just giving you what the government did to black people. And some of y'all will go, I didn't know any of this. But I've given you statistics. And it's okay that you didn't know. It's not okay, but it's okay. Because most of us, statistically speaking, all of us went to school with a girl who was abused in some type of way. But we didn't know. It doesn't mean it didn't happen to her. It just means we didn't know. But now that you know, ask yourself, what are you going to do about it to change it? Because it's true.